It is time now to look at some of the latest litigation making its way through the Illinois General Assembly, and one of those bills deals with firearms. It's an omnibus bill. Let's go ahead and hear from a committee yesterday where this bill was presented by State Representative Maura Hirschauer, who talks about what the bill entails. It's got 6 different elements in it. Here's just some of what those elements include when it comes to regulating firearms in the state of Illinois.
The first policy in House Bill 676 addresses an unincorporated county issue with the discharge of firearms around residential properties. Unincorporated neighborhoods in the state have reported dangerous incidents of discharged firearms within residential areas. In these cases, homeowners have found bullets lodged in swing sets, garden sheds, and fence posts. Currently, county boards may, by ordinance, regulate or prohibit within unincorporated areas the discharge of firearms in any residential area. To increase public safety, this bill changes the definition of a residential area from any area within 300 yards of residential property to any area within 1,000 yards. Therefore, counties may, by adopting an ordinance, prohibit the discharge of firearms unless in the case of self-defense in any area within 1,000 yards of residential property.
So again, this would essentially change the distance from which somebody can fire a weapon that's not self-defense. We'll hear some of the questions around that coming up, but more on this bill, a task force they're looking to create.
This establishes a task force on firearm insurance. The purpose of the task force is to review current and potential future insurance policy offerings for safe and legal possession of firearms and offer policy-making recommendations.
So again, a task force to look at making people who own firearms also have an insurance policy. Again, it's just a task force, wouldn't make it a law, but somebody, group of people looking into the issue. So we'll see what happens there. Another element of Hirschauer's omnibus package deals with prepackaged explosive devices.
The next piece in the omnibus addresses possession and sale of prepackaged explosive components. The bill provides that federally licensed firearm dealers may offer for sale prepackaged explosive component products only if they keep records of any such sale. The bill states that one must have a valid FOID card to acquire or possess prepackaged explosive components and makes it a Class 4 felony for the unlawful sale or delivery of prepackaged explosive components.
And then another measure of the omnibus bill, which again is House Bill 218, and you've got a lot of questions that are coming up we'll get to in a bit from yesterday's House Judicial Criminal Committee, but Maura Hirschauer laying out the orders of protection changes that this particular omnibus package would bring about.
The bill clears up an important oversight within the Firearm Restraining Order Act by adding intimate partner to the definition of petitioner. And finally, House Bill 676 cleans up a section of the Illinois Domestic Violence Act that pertains to the firearm prohibition remedy within emergency and plenary orders of protection. We know that risk of intimate partner homicide increases 500% when abusers have access to a gun, and that leaving a domestic violence relationship is a period of high lethality risk, including the time of filing orders of protection. Equipped with this information, it is critical that we close the loophole created by a drafting oversight that has prevented some judges in the state from issuing the firearm remedy during the emergency stage equitably and consistently throughout the state. The bill clarifies existing language in the IDVA statute that allows for a judge to issue a seizure order for firearms when granting emergency orders of protection. Immediately upon entry of an order of protection prohibiting firearm possession, the court shall issue a seizure order of any firearm in the possession of the respondent to be kept by local law enforcement for safekeeping.
So, again, Maura Hirschauer's bill, just to make clear, this is House Bill 676. I think I said 218 earlier, but 676 is the omnibus package that would change hunting restrictions from 300 yards to 1,000 yards. It would create a task force to explore requiring liability insurance for firearms, a requirement to have a FOID card to access tannerite, with penalties of being a Class 4 felony if you violate that, domestic violence order protection changes, and more. So a lot of different moving pieces there. What's some of the reaction from advocacy groups? Well, we'll hear that next here on WMAY with Springfield's Morning News. I'm Greg Bishop. You can always call in live and local at 217-629-7970. Again, that's the phone number, 217-629-7970. Love to hear your thoughts on some of these measures. We'll get to some of the reaction from various groups and some lawmakers as well. Stay tuned. That's coming up here on WMAY. We're in the process of unpacking a firearms omnibus bill at the Illinois legislature that does a variety of things. This is House Bill 767, and it passed out of a committee yesterday and could go onto the House floor in the days ahead with the final few weeks here of legislative session for the spring session. So House Bill 767, what it does is it's an omnibus bill about firearms. It deals with restraining orders, making some changes there. It also changes restrictions on hunting to essentially say that you can't hunt not 300 yards, but 1,000 yards from a residential area. Creates a task force to evaluate the possibility of requiring liability insurance on firearms. It requires a FOID card to access tannerite. It changes domestic violence orders of protection and a variety of other things. So there's a lot of moving pieces here with this particular legislation. And the witness slips, well, here's how that went yesterday in the House committee that was talking about this issue. Here's the chairman, Justin Slaughter.
Definitely permission not to read all of the 250 proponents, all of the 1,166 opponents, and also there was 4 individuals, representatives that slipped in a no position.
And that has since changed. We're looking at the most recent witness slips that were filed at the my.ilga.gov website. 622 proponents, 2,182 opponents, with 12 having no position. So obviously a lot more opponents to this than proponents. But you had people there to speak to this issue, including Josh Witkowski, who's a lobbyist for a variety of different groups. He's working for an outdoors association, and he shared some of his thoughts about the tannerite issue when it comes to requiring individuals to have a FOID card to purchase prepackaged explosive devices. Here is Josh Witkowski during the committee hearing yesterday, sharing some of his concerns.
This bill is written, it would require a 3-day waiting period in order to acquire tannerite, which is known as a binary target. My client has informed me that this is an item that is used by farmers and outdoorsmen to remedy flooding that has been caused by wildlife-built structures. And so they would have to suffer 3 days' worth of flooded farm fields and or flooded lands.
So he says that that is something that is going to hold up progress for those individuals impacted. But then again, it comes with a criminal penalty if you don't follow that. And it also requires the tracking. We've talked about this before with a separate bill, but it looks like this measure is being put into a much larger bill. Then Witkowski talks about the task force that's proposed in this bill to deal with a question of insurance premiums.
The next concern is the insurance task force. I know that Representative Morgan has put a lot of good work into trying to build what he believes is a good bill here. One of the issues that we have with it is there's no representation from the outdoors community outside of the Director of Department of Natural Resources. On top of that, the only firearms advocates that are appointed by the governor. And the governor has made his feelings very well known on these issues. We feel that the purpose of the task force would be better served if you included advocates that may be in opposition to some of the goals of the task force to create a better, well-rounded debate to come back with a better report. So we would add.
Again, Josh Witowski there in front of the House Judiciary Committee yesterday talking about this issue. Wasn't the only group there raising concerns. You had the Illinois State Rifle Association's Ed Sullivan there as well, raising concerns about the 1,000-yard rule for hunting.
To take the ability of someone to hunt on their farm. My family owns 3 farms. I can tell you right now, all of them will be impacted this, and I will no longer be able to hunt on my farm. That is a taking that will probably declare this unconstitutional. Creates a task force requiring liability insurance. Under the Bruin decision, they talked about unreasonable fees. So I have a side bet with the Representative Morgan. We were kidding. What do you think a liability fee would be to have liability insurance, and would that be unreasonable? So as you move forward, should this pass and get passed into law, think about that perspective on what you might come up with in this task force.
So again, he seems to be critical of the 1,000-yard rule, the 1,000-yard rule, the task force to create an insurance liability for those who own firearms. But Sullivan also had concerns about the changes to the orders of protection.
Well, if you surrender them to law enforcement, Section D, right after this, says, upon expiration of the period of safekeeping, if a firearms or firearm owner cannot be returned to the respondent because the respondent cannot be located, fails to respond, requests to return the firearms, or is not lawfully eligible to possess a firearm. So think about that. We have this domestic violence order, and then it turns out that maybe the person, male, female, does not matter which, has a mental illness, is addicted to drugs. Those are 2 prohibitors to a FOID card. And so they would lose their FOID card. So if you force someone to turn over firearms to law enforcement, one of the remedies for the court, there's a few, the court may order the local law enforcement agency to destroy the firearms, which would be a taking, use the firearms for training purposes or for any other application as deemed appropriate by law enforcement.
And they can also destroy them. And he says that there's a lot of investments that people make when it comes to their firearms collections, a lot of investments.
There are people that have hundreds of thousands of dollars invested in their firearms. It might not mean a lot to other people, but they don't get to transfer those to their heirs. They don't get to transfer that, even just from the monetary amount.
So again, some of the concerns that are raised about this omnibus package of legislation at the Illinois State House, House Bill 767, and you can find more details about it at ilga.gov. If you just search House Bill 676, then you'll be able to find the details of that. Again, at ilga.gov, just type in House Bill 676, and you'll be able to find it, and you can read it by looking at the full text and so on. But back to it, the Sheriff's Association, Jim Kychek, he was there at the committee, also talking about some of the concerns that sheriffs have, especially about the orders of protection.
The Sheriff's Office is solely responsible for the orders of protection. It is our duty in statute. It is not the responsibility of municipal police, state police, or anybody else. So on good, bad, or otherwise, this responsibility is landing on us. So what happens here, the judge orders an emergency OP. He indicates as part of that OP that he wants to take the guns and issues a seizure order. We have 48 hours from the time that the judge issues that order in order for us to serve the OP and seize those weapons. So what does it mean? Anybody familiar with the process for orders of protection would also tell you that OPs are often not served at the residence. Many, many times, in fact, probably the majority of times, they're stopped with other interactions that we have. Say it's a traffic stop, and a municipal cop has somebody pulled over. They look on leads and find out that there's a pending order of protection. That order of protection may be in this county. It could be in 3 counties away. So that process would then go to there. So we serve them there. We're not even serving them with the OP at that point, or with the seizure. So the next problem is, so that where does the clock has already started at the point where the judge issued the order, but we didn't catch them at their house to be able to serve this. So what happens there? We then try to make contact at the house. They know there's an order of protection. You're talking about increased interaction with law enforcement, and I heard that was one of the concerns, that we were trying to limit the interaction with law enforcement. So this is certainly going down that path. The other side of this, though, is let's say that I am fortunate enough to catch the person at their home, their residence. I knock on the door. They answer the door. I say, hey, I've got an order of protection. I read it through. By the way, the judge has indicated that you need to turn over your weapons to me. I don't have any weapons. They shut the door. What do I do? There's no warrant that allows me to go inside at this point in time. We have to go back at that point in time and indicate to the court that we were hopefully able to successfully serve the order of protection, but we weren't able to seize any weapons.
So again, the Sheriff's Association raising a whole host of concerns with how exactly they're going to enforce this. And also, if they have to take a whole bunch of firearms, where exactly are they going to put them? There's limited space that law enforcement has for such items to keep them safe. Bob Morgan, he is on the Judiciary Criminal Committee. He responded to the sheriffs yesterday, talking about the issue of enforcing laws.
Wide. I think we are in a moment in time, however, than just the last 6 months, the Sheriff's Association, the majority of sheriffs in the state of Illinois, has said that they will not follow the law that the state of Illinois passes. They will not enforce the law that this body passes. So when it comes to credibility about enforcement, you have to forgive me with respect from being skeptical about the ability to enforce a law that this body passes.
And he's talking about the sheriffs across the state, the vast majority, 90-plus sheriffs out of 102 counties that have said that they won't enforce the state's gun and magazine ban. So he's saying it begs the question as to the legitimacy of questions of enforcement that the Sheriff's Association is raising when it comes to the orders of protection. Again, a conversation for another day. But Morgan also addressed the issues of the insurance task force that's part of this omnibus package. Again, here's Bob Morgan from yesterday's committee.
It's important to talk about the task force is intended to review the insurance elements of this. I think has been noted, Illinois does not currently require any kind of insurance for firearm ownership. And in fact, this would really be the first in the country to do so. And that, from an insurance perspective, is a challenge. So the idea of a task force is to review how would this happen? Under what conditions would insurance apply? How much would it cost? And how would we make sure that with 2.5 million plus FOID card owners, how are they making sure they're compliant with state law for potential insurance in the future? But again, it's task force.
So again, a task force that's created that would have also the ability for the minority party to put a member on that task force. But how all that comes together, again, that's part of this omnibus package of legislation in House Bill 676. It did pass out of committee along party lines of 9-4 votes. It's on the second reading agenda for the House. Comes up on a third reading agenda after it gets read again, and then it could possibly pass over to the Senate. So we'll be watching that closely here with Springfield's Morning News. I'm Greg Bishop on 92.7 WMAY, Springfield's News and Talk.